Hello, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thanks for joining me for this IPA talk. Grateful to have with me Dr. Marcus Belin, who is recently been named the High School Principal of the Year, principal at Huntley High School, a place that I visited a few years ago. But Marcus, no stranger to IPA talks. We'll get into some of that, but thanks for being with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and connect with the membership for sure.
Yeah, you bet. So, of course, Marcus, want to hear this from you a little bit. You last time you were on an IPA talk, we might have been talking about your upcoming presidency when you were association president a couple of years ago. But thought it'd be nice, kind of as a recap for those that might not know you and are not familiar with your story. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about things you got going on at Huntley High School.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start by saying I'm a fifth generation educator. Education is run on my mom's side of the family, as far back as we can remember, and
Yeah.
a lot of the memories. My grandmother taught in Chicago public schools for over 40 years as a special education teacher, and being able to leave a legacy in the community. It was one of those things where, like, growing up, you always got the question, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, education just seems like the path to go, right? You get the impact of public service and get the impact on people's lives every single day. And
Well, in 40 years as a special education teacher, man, she like stored up a ton of treasures in heaven with that tour of duty.
Yeah, man. Like some of the stuff that some of the stories she would tell, just even about her time and the people she connected with. And I always ask, like, why didn't you just go into school leadership? And she found a joy in that space. And she always
Hmm.
told me, she said, when you find something that you love to do, that's where you root yourself, right? In so many words, right? Like that's where you root your belief and your values in. And so education was it for me. So this is my 14th year in education in total. I taught fifth and sixth grade social studies for 2 years at a charter school that I was fortunate enough to be a part of the founding team to open that
Hmm.
school for the middle school, and the founding team to open up the high school. So I did that. Moved into administration very early on as a dean of students, just at the early age of 23.
Hmm.
Uh, Kind of moved through the system as an assistant principal at public school at Dunlap High School down in Dunlap, Illinois, and then came here to Huntley at the ripe age of 29 and my first principalship. So I'm 7 years in the role here. Still standing, a couple of
Yeah.
gray hairs popping out, but
Yeah.
all good.
Well, we ought to give a shout out to Monique as well, right, man? I mean, you're keeping it in the family because you married up, like
Yep.
all of us have done, like myself. But your wife's also in school leadership as well.
Yeah, it's funny because we always joke about it every once in a while. She's currently an assistant principal at Chesapeake Elementary here within our district, a school building of a whole lot,
Yeah.
several hundred, kindergarten through second graders. And so the stories of her end of the spectrum coming into the district and my end of the spectrum leaving the district, we do have some great spirited conversations around education and what elementary should be preparing high schoolers for, and high schoolers like, man,
Yeah.
what we should be doing at the early ages. So it's fun, man. We love kids. We love kids. We're involved in the community, but she has really given me the ability to grow in school leadership, and she took it on, and she's doing fantastic as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So 7 years in there at Huntley, Marcus, tell us a little bit about what you got going on right
Oh
now
my
at HHS that's got you really excited.
Man, I am fortunate enough to work with such a fantastic team. My APs, not a lot of schools. A school this size, we're 2,700. When I started here, we were at 3,100 kids.
Mhm.
But with enrollment across the country, really just on a decline in education, and in our schools, still 2,700 kids is probably wild to some people. And to me, I'm like, ooh, this is comfortable, right? But I have a very strong team of APs who I can really entrust to like go out and really do what they are great at. And then that trickles down to our department chairs and athletic directors and so forth, and just everybody really having some ownership in the culture and climate that exists here at Huntley. We are very fortunate with the resources and space that we have, space that we've been able to create. When I started here, I was a part of a roughly a $5 million expansion of our fine arts facility. That was year one for me, right? Come in, grab this hard hat, let's go to the construction. um, uh, we were able to really kind of grow some things for our kids. I think some of the things that I'm most excited about in terms of the work that we're doing is really starting to get into some of those partnerships within our community. McHenry County has over 8,000 businesses, and man, when you can tap into the business world and what people are doing outside and say, hey, we want to prepare our kids for what's happening outside of
Mhm.
our four walls of the school. What do we need to teach them? What do they need to learn so that they can be ready? And just how open our business community is. So I think a lot of the partnerships that we've been able to garner over these past few years has been fantastic. And then I, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk just even about our culture and our climate here. Most schools, a lot of schools, right at the beginning of the year, they think of what's the theme? What do we, how are we rolling into this year? And they come up with this theme. And our theme has always been "You Matter." Hashtag "You Matter," and really helping our kids and our staff and everybody who walks into our building, even our guests, help them realize and recognize that they belong to a community and to a family. Well, we're going to affirm who they are. We want people to authentically show up as themselves in the space, whatever that means to them, and just knowing that they're going to be supported. Because again, who are we to tell people how to live their life? I want people to have that ability to share their gifts and their talents in this space, and then go out and have an impact in the world. And what better place to do it here in a space where we can support them?
Yeah. So I've had the opportunity to visit you there at Huntley several years ago, and I remember at that time, Marcus, and I think in the education circles we may have lost sight of this. Just not that schools still aren't doing it, but maybe it's not talked about as much as it used to be. But I still feel like with what we see with technological advancements and other things that are coming, the whole notion of a competency-based approach to the educational experience, you at Huntley, and I know some of this work started before you came, but you've worked to amplify that. I know the whole competency-based approach to education. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that and how that's going for you there?
Yeah, it's been a journey. That was one of the things as well that I got excited about when I started here. Our competency-based program, we were a pilot with the state back in 2018. They had selected 10 schools across the state, and we were one of them. And when I started here, my first day of school was the first day of this program, and we had kids enrolled. It was also the foundations of my dissertation on creating a competency-based education program in a large public suburban school. And the reason that it was because I had to learn so much about competency-based
Yeah.
education. I actually scrapped my original topic for my dissertation.
Holy smokes!
And
Holy,
I
I
was
forgot
two
about
years,
that.
I was
Yeah.
2 years in on that thing, right?
Oh,
Like I'm writing, and then I get here, and I remember it was like July 7th of 2018 where I opened up a brand new Word document, mm, and
so you
started.
did like a second lit review kind of thing and all that stuff? Because
Yeah,
you're a couple years in, you've already done a ton of research and writing.
and I was moving, and when I
Yeah.
realized I needed to be married to this topic, uh, and I was like, I can't do research on a program and do research on a
Mhm.
dissertation. So I said, scrap it, let's go. And I learned about a whole new style of education, and I'm like, man, this is just fantastic. The concepts of competency-based education, the simple understanding of students being able to show mastery of what they know and not just sitting down, especially someone growing up. like I had test anxiety, but to be able to like explain to somebody or show somebody that I'm competent enough to be able to do the
Mhm.
work was fantastic. And so we started this competency-based program 7 years later. It looks a little bit different. We've actually phased out our program and kept a lot of our the concept of competency, especially with the teachers who have been trained. They're
Mhm.
doing that really in the settings of a traditional esque classroom.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason we kind of phased it out, the biggest challenge that we had was running um, almost in a sense a school within a school.
Yeah.
And a school our size with all of what we have to offer, we have over 277 different classes that we offer, and we're always adding more. And so to try to fit that into a traditional model of schooling is a challenge. But it's a challenge that opened up a door for us to really have some conversation of what our schedule could look like, what school could look like for our kids. And I think when we talk about the excitement of some of the things that we're doing is figuring out how we can look at our classes and merge some classes together and double block some classes together. Why not take a foreign language class and merge it with a foods class to learn and do culture when it comes to food and so forth? So we're really starting to take the concept and make it a little bit of our own.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the whole notion of you guys being mindful about taking the best elements of something, knowing if it's not going to work as it exists, taking the best elements of that and figuring out how to systemize it so that those good things can continue on for
Yeah.
students. I think that part's great.
That's like failing forward, right? Like you
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
know what you don't know. And
Yep.
in education, there's a lot of people who find themselves in a situation of like, oh, we can't mess up, right? Like this is our kids' lives and their
Yeah.
future. You're right, that is it. But we are also human and creating a space where we actually have to keep up with our kids now because our
Right.
kids are beating us because they have so much at their fingertips. And so I think it's just trying to rethink how we can bring in what our kids know and what our kids need to know and really create an experience that is meaningful for them, right? And
Mhm. Mhm.
some of the traditional things that used to be when we were in school or when our kids' parents were in school, like that stuff just doesn't exist anymore. We have to be okay with just letting it go,
Yeah.
finding the things that are going to work, and not taking it to the expense of our kids, but really bringing them into the fold and into the conversation and saying, hey, what experience do you want to create and
Right.
how can we structure the system to best support that?
Well, as educators, in schools, we are not the knowledge isn't the same type of commodity that it used to be, where teachers were the ones that held the knowledge and then disseminated, the information to the students. Students now have unlimited access to all the knowledge, and teachers can still be the ones to disseminate some of that, but we got to trust that the kids are coming with their own base as well and ability to go find some things out. And so the types of experiences that we're providing have to obviously look different, of course, with artificial intelligence. And I'm not looking to go down to that rabbit hole right now because we can spend a lot of time there. But we know that as the advancements continue, we better continue to evolve in order to keep up, right? And stay
We,
relevant.
we definitely can't bury our heads in the sand and just think like, okay, this too shall pass. Like
No,
it's
this one isn't passing.
not passing. It's staying right with us. And if we don't
Not the
see
last, not the last Nvidia stock update that I just saw, so it's not going
it,
anywhere.
we will get left behind if we
Yeah,
don't. And
yeah,
that's
for
when
sure.
schools become irrelevant when we decide that we can't keep up, right?
Yeah. Well, Marcus, be remiss here if we didn't chat a little bit about your work, in terms of influencing the profession beyond just the work you're doing there as principal at Huntley. We mentioned briefly, obviously, that you'd been president of IPA a few years ago and had those great opportunities. But you also are very involved with NASSP, the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Can you just talk a little bit about that, your experience, and why it's important for school leaders to be engaged?
Um, if you had to ask me when I started my journey, kind of where did I see myself? I always saw myself in the Department of Education, right? Secretary of Education. I was like, man, that seems cool. Like to have influence over educational policy for our country. Like
Mhm.
some people may be like, really?
Yeah.
I love educational politics and going through going through my undergrad, I actually took a policy course as one of my electives, and that was where I really got hung up on like, man, this I'm really liking this. And I had a professor that really challenged us to think um, and to apply it to the field of study in which we were going in. And so then I realized how much of a voice that individuals and schools have. I always student voice and staff voice. They know here if my walls right now are just covered with like post-it paper and this and that, where kids like if you got an idea, they stop by, they put stuff up. My principal's leadership council, they come in and they put things up. And I recognized how valuable voice is. And when I moved into connecting with NASSP, um, I first became a member, and then second, I really looked at how I could become more of a presence in a space where I had the energy, and I was excited about the work, and having some of the younger voices in education come to the table to elevate the stories that were coming from our buildings. Went to my first advocacy conference with IPA. And I had the time of my life being able to walk into lawmakers' offices, sit down with either them or their staffers, and just talk about the great things that are happening here in Illinois. I fell in love with it. And so uh, I didn't just dive in head first. I jumped in whole body, right?
Yeah.
I just dived into
That sounds about right.
in the
Yeah.
NASSP. I applied, became a board member 3 years ago. Wow, it's been 3 years, um, along with 19 other amazing educators from across the country that work in various school settings. And so I felt like it was just ongoing PD for me to grow as a school leader, but also to really see what a value of having a voice at the table can do, whether that be from the federal um, level or even looking at our local and state. And I'm, involved and still connected with some of the work that the state board has going on with evidence-based funding and our professional review panel and state assessment review committee. Jason told me that I had to remain on these committees, and so I said I will answer the call. I love it. So yeah,
Appreciate
that's
that.
NASSP has been 3 years, 3 years and running, and I'm loving the work that's going on with that organization.
Yeah, yeah. Well, looking forward to additional things to come there where NASSP is concerned, and want to be sure to also just put a plug in as you're talking about the critical importance of being engaged for folks to be involved. Choose to, when action alerts are coming out from Allison, please be sure to respond. When, and also opportunities to be a part of our legislative committee. That's not a closed group. Any member could participate as part of that and receive the updates from Allison's jump on monthly updates and meetings just to hear about things that are going on. And we are while this recording is March 3rd, it'll be probably a couple weeks before we get this out for viewing, but we'll still be right in the heart of legislative session and definitely need member engagement. I mean, the best stories we hear are when we hear that legislators are texting school leaders from either the House or the Senate floor, like, "Hey, I'm about to vote on this bill. Can you remind me what your thoughts are about it?" And that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll vote the way you want them to, but at least they've had the respect to reach out in advance and make a decision. So that's really, really important for sure.
And I'll say this. I think what was eye-opening to me was it was an advocacy conference. We were on Capitol Hill, and I was walking in, and I asked one of the staffers. I said, "So, kind of explain to me your role." I mean, these are college kids that are straight out of college, right? Like they come in, they work for politicians, and they, manage their schedules, and they meet with all of these people, but they literally are sitting and taking notes. And they are actually the experts that take the information to those leaders and say, "Hey, here's all of the pieces." And then they actually get to formulate their own understanding so that when the policy does come and they do need to vote, they can do it from a sense of like, I understand, but they really focus and allow their staffers to build that case for them. And what was so eye-opening to me was how much they actually listened. And yes, they do reach out. Some of our local legislators here in McHenry County, and even for our state at the federal level, there have been numerous times where they've reached out to say, "Hey, you got 15 minutes to just connect?" Or principal for a day. I actually engage in a lot of conversation when, Bill Foster walks into my building and says,
Mhm.
"Hey, tell me about this. This is what's coming up." And they really want to hear your stories. And I think a lot of people, for us as school leaders, we shy away from like, well, I don't know what to say. Or, IPA asked if we could fill out a witness statement. I don't want to go speak. You don't realize that just speaking from your heart, being authentically you, and just
Right.
sharing the impact that this could have even for your building or even for some of your colleagues around, how easy it is to just tell the story.
That's
Go
right.
tell the story of what's happening in your building, and that potentially could shift an entire tide of votes one
Right.
way or the other just because you were able to share. I always
Yeah.
tell my kids, closed mouths don't get fed. So
I
if
love it.
if
Yeah.
you're hungry, go eat. You got to
Yeah.
open up
Yeah.
your mouth to put the food in. So I think when you can really advocate, even at the highest level, you'd be surprised at how far your voice can carry in the platforms that you can have, and the impact that you can have
Yeah.
on the kids that we serve every day.
Yeah. Well, school leaders, when you look at surveys of how people feel about the various professionals within a school, the trust that people have in school leaders is still quite high, all things considered. And so, your voice speaking out to those that are listening in is heard, it's respected, and it's needed. Because if we're not telling those stories, somebody else is maybe telling the counter narrative that may not be accurate, true with what you're dealing with. And so it's obviously really important to be engaged. So Marcus, as we start looking to land the plane here during our time together, I got two questions for you, two things I kind of want to make sure we get into. Number one, you're 7 years in there at Huntley. If you were to be talking to some aspiring or brand new school leaders, which I know you do, what's like the one thing that would be most critical for them in order to think about what's going to be necessary for their success? The other thing too, I mean, 7 years in, that blows past the average. You're almost like two times the normal amount that the average that school leaders are sitting in a position, because that average is about 4 years, which then tells you if four is an average. Think about how many are only 1, 2, or 3 years in a position, but you're 7 years in. So curious about what's sustaining you in that role, because you're long past the honeymoon phase, right? I mean, you own those decisions and this, that, and the other. So just curious. So you want to start there? Let's get going with that one.
It's it's funny. There's only a certain amount of time where you can be like, okay, help me understand. I'm new.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at your team, you're like, hey guys, I
Yeah.
didn't know this. I'm new. But I will tell you, even 7 years in, I just left the operations meeting this morning. There was something that came up. I was like, you know what? That's never come up in my time here.
Yeah.
Like, help me understand, because I do have some seasoned veterans that are in the room with me, that serve on my administrative team. And I asked, like, hey, give me some historical background of why this even came to the table. And so even
Yeah.
7 years later, I'm still asking those questions. But if I'm going to make a change to it, most people would be like, you should know, right? Like this is what we expect of you as the leader of the building. So I'm willing, if I make a decision, and it's not the right decision, I'm willing to own it. I've owned so much in front of my staff, and I'm not willing to shy away. I will be the first to be like, yep, hey guys, messed up right here. It's okay.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to fix it, and then we move forward. And I think that really plays into the original part of your question. What sustains me? Uh, what's fortunate is that I've had the ability to authentically be me since the moment I walked in this building. The
Mhm.
only thing that has changed about me was how I show up in the space physically.
Yeah.
I mean by that is when I started here, man, my closet was full of button-up shirts. I had like
Mhm.
over 100 ties. My sock game was on point. Like I can lift my socks up. I had the craziest colors. It was fantastic. And now I wear athletic socks and got my
Yeah, that's not your only pair of those either.
and a polo. And
Yeah.
most people think like this is what you should look like. This is how you should be when you show up in the space to sit in the seat of a building that serves over uh, almost 3,000 people, right? And how I show up in the space, I said, you know what, I want to be authentically me. And I think as a school leader, when you get in, you got to make this thing your own.
Mhm.
I didn't have to worry about the perception that people have of me. Like people are going to think what they want to think, they're going to believe what they want to believe. But at the end of the day, I show up to serve kids. I show up to serve my staff. I will never ask my staff to do anything that I can't, that I wouldn't do. Um, but at the end of the day, being on fire for kids is what our main task is.
Mhm.
Period. Hands down. And so I bring their voices to the table. I sit and I connect with them. And like I said, when I say authentically you, who do you want to be? Right? Like 10 years down the road after, or let's say retirement comes for you and you had this spot in the Washington Post. What do you want that headline to say about
Mhm.
you and your leadership in just a few words? Um, and for me, it's that I loved kids. I cared about my staff, and we challenged education in our space, and we challenged our those experience to be the best learning experience. That'd be a long title. I ain't really crapped out. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
just
that's
like
okay.
with
We'll
the
give it some
word.
time. Put it
Yeah,
in GPT, man.
yeah, I
It'll
know. 'Cause, like
it'll spit one out for you.
I'm legitimately, I get fired up about this stuff because man, it is truly the work of public service. And we become public
Mhm.
servants, and we can go do any other job. Dan Kraus, man, one of great leaders that have gone through IPA, great principal at Willowbrook High School, man. He always says it like we have the greatest job in the world because we legitimately get to make an impact on somebody's life every single day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
And think about the eternal impact of that. I mean, it's we're going to reverberate through them to others, right? The impact you're having on them will then move
kids,
forward. Just
kids,
always going. It's
the
eternal.
community, it keeps rolling.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it for this discussion, Marcus. Just always appreciate the opportunity and the time, and I look forward to reading what that real succinct headline will be one of
Yeah,
these days
I
as
gotta work on
well.
gotta work on that. It's funny because I always challenge school leaders. I'm like, if you had to, somebody had to write a headline about your leadership, what would that headline read
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now? And what do you want it to read, you know, 5, 10 years down the road? And Jason, your point, the average is 3 to 4 years. That is
right.
insane because if you look at anything regarding leadership or change leadership, it takes about 5 years for something to really like get off the
Yep.
ground running. And I will say, I think what that really sped up my time was I was a year and a half in, and then we shut down and went to the pandemic. So after that first year, I'm like, okay, cool. I know some things now. When my second
Hmm.
started, it was like, you don't know anything because you got to lead a school through a pandemic, which no one has done.
Right.
Um, I immediately kind of sped up that timeline of like soaking in all of the knowledge. But once I hit probably year 5, 6, I was like, okay, cool. We're definitely in a stride here. Um, you get to start really making some strategic decisions that wouldn't take as long as it would your first or second year because you know the players, you know the
That's
people,
right.
you know the temperature you're building, which is the climate, you know the culture that exists and what you want to exist. And it's actually like really fun when you hit 5, 6, 7, 10. I'm sure will be even better because you just have so much knowledge that you can really make some things happen and find out where your impact is. So, for those people who are going into school leadership, don't look at it as like, okay, cool, I want to do this for a couple of years and then see what's up. 5, really, you hit that stride.
Right.
5 to 10 is where the most fun is really starting to happen. So,
That's right. Totally agree. I've said over the years, it was about year 6 for my time here at IPA that I felt the wind was starting to hit my back.
yeah.
Felt like I was turning the corner and it was at my back rather than my face, with the headwinds and everything else. And there is an absolute dip that occurs year about 3, 4 because you're owning decisions. You've now had to make some people unhappy. You've got to work through the emotions of that and learn, if you're going to be resilient and get through it in order to stay on. But I totally agree with you. If you can persevere through that, and it's not just, and you're not expected to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Do it with colleagues, do it with friends, have a trusted team of people close as well as outside of school and relationships that can help sustain you. But yeah, I mean, it takes hanging in there and some perseverance in order to get to it.
And I think the last piece that I will say about this, when you say, how do I, what keeps the wind in my sails? I'm gonna be honest, like it really wasn't until probably late last year, year 6, coming into year 7, where the stress of certain situations and the stuff that was coming, I'm like, man, this is crazy. There was times that I would leave this building. I'm like, yep, not coming back tomorrow or the
Yeah.
next day or the next day.
Hmm.
Right? Like, or is there something else out there? Have I reached the ceiling? Have I like, what is it? And I intentionally stopped. I used to go home, man. I used to open up the computer. After leaving the office, I'd go home, set it up in the home office, and I'd start working again. And I actually found the most joy in being able to go home and be with the family I got back here,
Yeah.
and saying, man, the work is going to be there tomorrow. And even in the most stressful times, to go home, it's freeing to not open up that computer,
Yeah.
to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to attack it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And people always say, I know you're busy, you got a lot on your plate. Yeah, I do. I will always have a lot on my plate as a school leader. If you give 100%, schools are meant to take whatever you give them because they're thirsty. They need it. They're hungry for it. You give 100%, they taking 100. You give 50, they taking 50, right? If you intentionally set aside time for yourself to say, I need to be everything in all things to my family, but I also need to be everything in all things to my building. You got to find out what that balance is and stick to the balance.
Hmm.
Because if not, it will overtake one will overtake the other and you'll drown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so just be you, show up, and take time for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's good advice.
Boom, mic drop.
There you go. Like it. Dr. Marcus Belin, High School Principal of the Year, Principal of Huntley High School. Thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks, Jason.
Good to see you as always.
Likewise.
Again, I'm Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. As always, if there's anything that IPA can do for you, give us a call or check us out on the web at ilprincipals.org. Take care.